Hey folks, this is Carl Gallups of Freedom Friday, and this is a Freedom Friday update. There's so much being said about the convergence of happenings, perhaps prophetic happenings, in September of 2015. Of course, we're already in the month at the time I'm making this particular update for Freedom Friday, but there's a lot of speculation and a lot of confusion as to what all of this means. So what I wanted to do is just to pull together some things that we know about what is happening, what has happened in September of 2015, and what is happening regarding a convergence of events. And these convergences could very well be prophetic. Now, please hear me before I even begin with this. I want you to know I am not a date setter. I don't set dates and times. I try not to be super sensational in dealing with things of this nature, but just rather report what is, and even I don't mind speculating from time to time, and that is there may be something that has not yet happened, but we can speculate on it, but I don't claim to be a prophet, nor do I claim to be making any prophetic utterances. But I just want us to see what is happening in the world around us. Because the truth is, regardless of the September convergences, which are quite astounding actually, we are living in very biblically prophetic times. I mean, think of it. What do we know? I mean, Israel is back in the land. That's a 2,500-year-old prophecy foretold throughout the Scriptures, beginning in the book of Deuteronomy, kind of climaxing, if you will, in Ezekiel 37 with the Valley of the Dry Bones prophecy. But then right after that, of course, is Ezekiel 38 prophesying that when this return to Israel comes back to the land, there would be a coalition of nations that would come together to attack that returned Israel and to drive her into the sea and to destroy her forever. And of course, we're watching that very coalition form right before our eyes, including Iran and Russia. And of course, Turkey and Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and ISIS and the Middle East and along the Euphrates River, all of these other prophetic convergences that have already taken place and are coming to fruition right before our eyes, long before September 2015. Plus, of course, we have in 1967, Jerusalem is back in the possession of Israel, another 2,000-plus-year-old prophecy. So all of those things have already happened, and there's much more like that. But let's talk about September alone. First of all, just a few days ago, we had an unprecedented event happen in the United States of America. A Christian woman, a clerk of a court, went to jail because she believes that a marriage is between a man and a woman. Now, I'm not discussing the legalities of this nature here. I've done that in other videos. I know that people want to argue, well, she just should have kept the law or she wouldn't be in jail, and she's not in jail for believing a marriage is between a man and a woman. She's in jail because she didn't uphold the law. That is a faulty argument. Again, I've gone through that in much detail and have constitutional and legal experts who have agreed with me in print, in the media. But that's not the purpose of this broadcast. What I want to say is it is unprecedented, and it happened in September of this year, that an American citizen is now sitting in jail, by her own words, because she does not believe a marriage is between a man and a man or a woman and a woman. She believes a marriage is between a man and a woman only, and she refused to issue a marriage license to homosexual couples. Of course, we also know other things that are converging in the month of September. In September 2015, of course, we have the three fall feasts of the seven feasts of the Lord, the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Atonement, and then culminating with the Feast of Tabernacles. And of course, these things are on the feast calendar, and they would have occurred anyway, of course. But all of these are converging in the month of September of 2015, and it just so happens that they coincide with the ending of a Shemitah cycle. Again, most of the listeners know exactly what a Shemitah cycle is, and if they don't, it's easy to look up on the internet. The purpose of this video is not to do an in-depth education of each of these topics. Jonathan Cahn has written much about this. But not only does the Shemitah cycle end this September, but it's also the beginning of what is called a Super Shemitah, or the Year of Jubilee. And that happens, of course, only once every 50 years. So all of that is happening in September, along with the Feast of Trumpets and the Feast of Atonement and the Feast of Tabernacles. And then, of course, Pastor Mark Biltz has written extensively about the blood moon tetrad phenomena. that ends in the month of September 2015. And of course, we have Isaac Newton's prophecies of several hundred years ago, and not claiming that Isaac Newton is a premier prophet, but he did prophesy the return of Israel long before it happened, and he did prophesy that God would bring Israel back with the aid of a, quote, friendly kingdom. Of course, Isaac Newton died before the United States of America was a nation. Isaac Newton also, through a lengthy and complex set of mathematical calculations based upon the book of Daniel, arrived at the year 2015 in the month of September on the 23rd day as, according to Isaac Newton, a very prophetic day with messianic implications. September the 23rd, 2015. And most people who are students of prophecy and know this utterance of Isaac Newton called Newton's riddle, they know that this date is very profound indeed. So you've got the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacles, the Shemitah ending, the Super Shemitah beginning, the Year of Jubilee, the Blood Moon Tetrad ending, and then on top of that, you have the United Nations meeting with the Pope in attendance, meeting at the White House with Barack Obama, addressing Congress, addressing the United Nations, and the Pope has just recently called for, his own words, a one-world government system to deal with man-made global warming. Can you imagine that? Unprecedented in history. A religious leader of renown, the Pope, literally using the words and calling for a one-world government system. The Pope. He is also the one who has recently affirmed the state of Palestine and acknowledged its existence, even though it doesn't really exist, nor are there any state borders, nor is there a state government or state currency or a state military. But yet the Pope has affirmed this, and the United Nations, supposedly, according to the reports I've been reading, is supposed to be discussing both the possibility of some type of a one-world government system to combat global warming, man-made global warming, and the state of Palestine. And we know both of these issues are very important to one Barack Hussein Obama. And on top of all of this happening in September, the CERN Institute in Geneva, Switzerland, the Hadron Collider, they are supposedly going to do some major experiments in the month of September 2015 that has a lot of the prophecy world and even the scientific community buzzing. Because according to Sergio Bertolucci, a scientist with CERN, as reported in the UK Register, he said that when this experiment commences, they are going to, quote, try to open a black hole, end quote. He said looking for, quote, hidden extra dimensions, end quote. And then Sergio Bertolucci, a scientist with CERN, said, and is quoted in the UK Register, quote, out of this door, out of this black hole, might come something, or we might send something through it. Pretty ominous words. So all of these things, and so much more, converging in on September of 2015. So people ask me, what does all this mean? Well, here's the biblically balanced way to look at this. I live on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and we live in Hurricane Alley. And so around June, hurricane season begins. And it lasts through about October of every year. June, July, August, September, October. Every year is hurricane season. Now, just because hurricane season commences in June doesn't mean anything is necessarily going to happen in June. But it does mean that we're in the season for something very ominous to happen. And so everybody keeps watch diligently. I would say that we're in a similar situation. I'm not making any prophecies. I'm not setting any dates. I'm just saying there is an amazing convergence of prophetic happenings and or events with potential prophetic implication. And they're all happening in one singular month in the year 2015. So it's kind of the beginning of a prophetic hurricane season, if you will. Doesn't mean anything's going to happen in September. Doesn't mean anything's going to happen in the close months after September. But it does mean we're in a season of amazing and startling prophetic convergences, all kind of beginning with the jailing of a U.S. citizen for believing that a marriage is between a man and a woman. Something to think about. God bless you. Thanks for listening to this quick Freedom Friday update. This is Carl Gallups.